Welcome to the module number 3, Peer Tutoring, part of the project Including Jerusalem, promoting inclusion as a unifying process for primary school children in fragmented communities of East Jerusalem. The main objectives of this module are knowing the principles of a collaborative classroom, knowing the strategy of peer tutoring and its benefits, understanding the role of teacher, tutor, and tutee, knowing some techniques of peer tutoring. Before presenting the strategy of peer tutoring, it is necessary to reflect about a collaborative classroom. Here you can see the different steps that a class needs to build its identity. At the beginning, the class group is not actually ready to tackle a task. It has to go through a slow process of building its identity, which passes through several steps: getting to know the members, the creation of a climate of mutual trust, the development of rules, the sharing of values, the definition of roles, the appropriation of the task. So let's see some tips about specific steps. It is important to develop strategies and routines to support cooperative learning. So it is important when we want to start a cooperative classroom to organize the classroom itself. Developing guidelines with the pupils, it is an important step to follow. For instance, the use of the voice at the distance of 15 or 30 centimeters, that can be different, no? Or assigning precise roles and rules with respect to who can get up from the desk, who can get material, who can use the personal computer, and so on. So on the left, you can see a version of guideline that can be hung in the classroom after explaining very well to all pupils. And at the beginning, this means that students may need some more time to fully understand that when we work with a cooperative learning activity, there are different rules and roles. It can also be important during a cooperative activity to agree on signals to get the group's attention. Sometimes it may be necessary to demand the attention of the various groups in order to communicate, to give further directions, to reduce any voices that are too loud, to finish one activity and start a new one. So the teacher must have some specific signal that pupils have immediately to understand and follow the instruction of the teachers. So having a precise signals will help pupils to immediately react. Raise your hand if you hear me. Turn towards me. These are only two examples. Also, counting backwards can be useful. 3, 2, 1, and everyone can stop to do the activity and listen to the teachers. When the interaction between pupils is quieter, less obvious signals may be enough, for instance, ringing a bell. It is good to have different types of signals that can vary depending on what we need from our pupils or how loud is the situation in the classroom. In order to promote interdependence within the group, which is an important component of cooperative learning, it is important that we give equal attention and equal importance to all the members of the groups. A cooperative group is a group where each member can have a role, a task, depending on the skills, but also in order to improve more skills in all the participants. So, tasks as drawing, organizing data in tables, using computers while available, giving oral presentations, building constructions, or more traditional skills, reading, writing, doing calculation. This variety of tasks allows more students to contribute to the group's final product. On the left, you can see an image expressing 4 possible rules and roles in the group. The facilitator, the recorder, the timekeeper, and the mediator. It doesn't mean that every time we have groups, the same pupils are doing the same role in the group. These roles can vary, and every time a pupil can perform a different role. But it is important that each one in the group is able to understand his or her role and to understand also that this role is crucial to the success of the group work. It is also important to remark that in a cooperative group, the teacher can grade not only the group work, but also the individual responsibility of each participant. So, in this way, all pupils will feel involved and all of them will be committed to the final task. So, it is necessary as a teacher to be able to identify the contribution of each individual student. How is it possible to recognize individual responsibility? There are different techniques, and here we can find some of them. We can require individual students to carry out a certain identifiable part of the group's work. Or we can ask groups to draw up a list explaining how each member was contributing to the work. Or we can ask other members to evaluate each other's participations and contributions. We can ask students to write down their observations in a notebook, and this will be then collected and evaluated by the teachers. We can have pupils hand in individual work, even if it's their own notes, as well as group work. We can ask pupils to keep a notebook notes on the daily work. Or we can ask during the presentation of a group work that each student is responsible for presenting a part of the work. We can ask some pupils an individual report of the group work, and then we can compare them. We can assign students a quiz based on the group's works. Of course, these are only some possible techniques, and each teacher can also vary and implement new techniques. When we want to start a group work, it is important to reflect that many times students who don't have experience of group work need to develop their skills through simple activities instead of complex projects. So we can start with peer tutoring, which is a group work with the smallest group we can imagine in the classroom, only 2 students. So in pair work, we practice to develop these skills in order then to be able to create a larger group with 4 or 5 students. So we don't have to rush. We need time to support our students in developing these skills. We can use specific games to learn our students to collaborate, to overcome conflicts, to respect each other, to engage, and so on. At the beginning of the school years, especially in a new class, it is important to work on getting to know each other, also to break down prejudice. Icebreaker games serve precisely to get to know each other in a funny way and to create a relaxed environment in which we feel free to participate. Here you can see some examples of icebreaker games. These are games where a big group of pupils can play together, possibly in a big circle so that everyone can see everybody. So the game of I like, I dislike, where everyone is presenting himself or herself, saying what he or she likes and what he or she dislikes. Another game, if I was an animal, a song, a city, a sport. Or with bigger pupils, we can talk about the latest book they've read, the latest movie they have been watching, the video game they are used to play. Or we can make a circle to talk about what I can do or what I cannot do. We can make a circle to talk about dreams. I would like to go, to be, to become. We can make a game with chairs to underline our merits and our defects. And we can also make a game with the noun initial of our name and finding a qualifying adjective with the same initial. There are also several trust games that we can play with students in order to create trust between them. For instance, guiding a mate blindfolded along a certain path, or in a circle support a companion moving in it, or we can play the game of the snake. So the group arranges itself in a single file and each holds the pattern in front by the shoulders. All, except the first one, close their eyes and let themselves be guided by him or her without speaking. When we play a trust game, it is important at the end to have a moment of discussion and reflection about how everybody felt and what they learn and so on, so that this will help them in building trust. In the Module 2, Teaching Strategies, you were introduced to this scheme. We now are in the architecture we call the collaborative and in the strategy peer tutoring. So as you remember, we are in a kind of strategy where there is less supervision by the teacher and an increased student agency. The basic idea of peer tutoring is to put students in a position to teach each other and to support and learn together. So peer tutoring occurs in situations where there is mutual teaching between students under the supervision of a teacher. It is important to know general aims, specific objectives, timelines, and procedures to be followed. It is the first step to support students in developing social skills. There are different forms of peer tutoring that can be applied in schools: reciprocal teaching, peer-assisted learning. This strategy can be used for all disciplines. It is best used to consolidate and reinforce learning of knowledge and competencies, to enable remediation and realignment of those who had fallen behind, while simultaneously gaining fluency and confidence in the topics covered. Peer tutoring involves working in pairs, and in each pair there is a tutor and a tutee. The pairs are formed by the teacher, who is familiar with the pupils and the specific situations. The tutor has the task of teaching the tutee, but it is important that the teacher create situations in which the roles can be switched, so the tutee becomes tutor and vice versa. Heterogeneity offers more possibilities and opportunities for mutual teaching and peer support, and pushes students to real confrontation, if possible with gender differences, cultural starting abilities, but also related to the experience and life stories that characterize each of them, improving the quality of relationships and the classroom climate. Heterogeneity within groups can be ensured by taking it into account three aspects: the level of competence of each person related to the type of activity task, the different types of skills possessed by the learners, and the level of sociality possessed. In summary, therefore, it will be optimal to have learners with different skills levels working together by valuing each one's abilities, and to form groups in which there are learners who don't have prestige in the classroom at school, with classmates who are instead more popular, but also more sociable and caring. The formation of groups in which everyone is of the same level or sociocultural background should be avoided, and groups in which there are best friends or worst enemies should also be avoided. In designing reciprocal teaching situations, the teacher must pay attention to these elements. Carefully match tutors and tutees. Set frequent and regular reciprocal tutor activities to be carried out. Provide specific training to the tutor on tutoring techniques, including correction procedures. Clearly define objectives, content of work in curricular areas, and material needed. Apply a monitoring system and an ongoing evaluation procedure with verification of the work done. Assume a role of timely and careful supervision. Use student tutors as agents of change in the individualistic habits of many children and not just as a kind of private tutors. Rotate roles so that tutees become tutor and vice versa. Valuing pupils with disability so that they can experiment to be tutors and not just tutees. In this table, you can see benefits for both the tutor and the tutees during an activity of peer tutoring. So the benefits for tutor are related to the systematization and consolidation of their knowledge and skills, the development of positive personal identity, the increase in positive interaction, the development of empathic capacity, the development of a positive and supporting attitude towards school and peers, the improvement of self-efficacy, self-esteem, attentional skills of cooperation and monitoring, the development of learning awareness, of self-control, of friendship relationships, of sense of responsibility, of motivation. Many of these benefits are the same for tutee. In particular, we can see the development of knowledge and skills and of positive personal identity, the increase in positive interactions, the development of meaningful learning, of a positive attitude towards schools and peers, the improvement of self-efficacy, self-esteem, of attentional skills of cooperation and monitoring, of learning awareness, of self-control, of friendship relationships, sense of responsibility, and motivation. Here you can see some techniques to work in peer. Drill partners. Peers practice materials that best me memorize. Reading buddies. Students read to each other. The teacher can build on this after a while by asking students to summarize or make up questions for their partners. Summarizing. Partners take turns retelling direction, content, or other material in summary form. Checking. Students compare answers and resolve discrepancies. Each student must be able to explain the answer, learning the value of differences. Reviewers. Students review for a quiz or test or prepare for an oral report by working together to develop questions. They ask and answer each other's questions. It is also possible to make this technique using flashing cards. Think aloud pair problem solving. One pupil has the role of listener, encouraging, asking certain questions, supporting, and the other has to solve a problem set by the teacher by thinking aloud. The teacher then invites pairs to present their solution and poses further problems to solve, and the roles in pairs are reversed.